Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Southampton Board of Selectmen's meeting, September 27th. To my left is Jackie Sears. To my right, James Labrie, John Martin. I'm Charlie Konecki. We'll start with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going to start off with open time for the public. Michael, are you public?
I'm here as a member of the Finance Committee, but we're not really on the agenda, so I just had a couple items to go through.
That's fine.
Outside of the normal agenda, outside of the warrants.
Okay. Yes, he has to introduce himself and all.
So Michael Rosenberg, Finance Committee, 144 East Street, Southampton. I had a couple questions. We did meet last week, a couple of things we threw around, and we figured it'd be a good time to kind of get together quickly, see if we can answer some of these. So the financial guide status. We did send out the budget process overview and draft, I guess you could call them consistent timesheets for each department. Has the select board been given that to review, or has there been any looking into that, or the financial guide as a whole, the draft?
So, Mike, you're kind of catching the board off guard on this one. So the financial management guide, this is the thing we've been working on that was recommended by the auditors with the members of the finance committee, myself, the treasurer, the accountant, the assessors for the past year or so. Mike did submit a couple weeks ago, if not closer to a month, the last couple documents we were waiting for. We have one more document waiting from Donna on investments. Once we get all those pieces, I think we had emailed Mike this week about meeting this week or next week. Remember that email?
Yeah, I wasn't sure what the...
Oh, so that was one of the things. So we can meet on that next week, get that finalized, at least from the preliminary stance, and then it goes to the rest of the departments, make sure no one has anything, and then to the select board to adopt. It's just internal management of how we handle our finances.
That's the Tuesday 6 o'clock meeting next week.
No, next Tuesday, 6 o'clock is just regular select board. So next Tuesday, October 4th at 6 p.m., the Finance Committee is on the agenda, as well as the assessor, the treasurer, and the accountant, because every quarter or ever so often they check in, and that's their scheduled check-in month. Does that clear up the confusion? Okay.
Okay, so more to come with that. Second, revenue and expense reports. I know we've talked about this for over a year, consistent distribution of revenue and expense reports. Do we have anything or any updates on where we are with inputting the final FY16 revenue, along with anything up to date for 17?
So where we are on that, Mike, to the best of my knowledge, is Donna was just finishing up June and sending it up to Vicky. So then Vicky has to double check the books before it gets inputted and turned over, ultimately at the end. As far as FY17, I'm not sure if they've begun starting that yet. I think they've been plugging away at it in intervals, but I don't think they've made intensive progress. We still have a bunch of new folks who are working out in the treasurer's office, so trying to get everyone situated and moving forward.
Okay, because we start working on next year's budget shortly. So just a reminder. I know I'm harping on it, but it would be nice to have it with the correct information, especially with things like budget transfers in front of us, because you don't know the true look of the accounts if you don't have them in front of you. And you're going to vote on transfers and warrants that you don't necessarily have all the information behind. Same thing with us. We'll recommend on things that we don't necessarily have all the documents to support it, and we have to search them out. So, third item, town clerk. The PCF we did approve. We did make some notes on that. We referenced the emergency and temporary hire requirements, so the 2 weeks and the 12 weeks, just because the language in there was until the individual returns, and that could be past the 14-week timeline, so we did reference the 2 and 12 on our approval on that, so. The 2 and 12 does put you past the election as well, so you will be covered for that. This item, a little off agenda. I'm not able to attend tomorrow night's select board meeting with the highway department. I know they're going to be talking about the transfer station. I just want to, I guess, reference everyone and remind everyone that the 2015 management report, we did cut the hours at the station, and we did raise fees to save $8,000. So if it is an option to open for another day, you're not going to be saving that amount of money because you're not going to generate $8,000 worth of revenue by being open one day. So just a reminder on that. Has any implementation or any conversations been had about the fire study recommendations, about the vehicles, the infrastructure, any of those things? I know it's been out there for a few months.
There was discussion with the fire chief relative to reducing the trucks by one
Okay.
and consolidating stuff. That was part of the conversation. I haven't talked about this myself in, 3 weeks or so.
Okay. All right, so I'm still pending. The government structure study with Community Paradigm Associates, have we had any output from that?
We are working on it right now. I met with Bernie Lynch, the gentleman from Community Paradigm Associates, about a week and a half ago. He has a brief summary that he started working on. He's working on the conclusion now. He's hoping to sit down with the board right after special town meeting. He doesn't want to put it on their plate before then and go over those pieces. And he will also have, hopefully, a draft charter for their review
Okay.
at the beginning of November.
Let's see, the Green Communities Act, and this is in reference to that for another committee, actually. So that requires that you, tabulate your previous year's energy usage bills, right? And I think we had employed the services of UMass students for that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know if they've completed and if that information is available?
We are still finishing up the piece. Our last component that we need to work on before we can get to the last piece for our application, which is the 20% reduction plan, is to obtain the information from our energy consultant, who was someone who worked for Eversource. We weren't paying. They do it, as in kind, so to speak. We are waiting on that. His last piece of information that he needed was from the school, and I believe, my understanding is he should have been able to get in there the end of August. So I did pop an email out to Kyle earlier today. I think his last name is Hauser. And I can't remember off the top of my head the name of the company he works for, but I did send him an email today, and hopefully he'll be able to update us on the status of that.
Okay, so do we know if all the data is input?
The rest of the data should be input into the, I'm trying to think of what the database is called.
Okay.
But the energy database that serves for the state's use of the Green
Okay.
Communities Program.
I would ask, for actually dual purposes really, for both financial committee related and public safety, building committee related, that maybe I have access to. We can talk offline about getting access to that information. One of the things we talk about with the public safety complex committee is really ascertaining what the cost of any building left unoccupied will be. So we'd like to gather those numbers, especially with the truncated timetable we have for going through everything. So I'll talk to you after about,
I'm
possibly
happy
getting
to
into
share
that.
the passwords with you, Mike, so you can log on and learn how to utilize the system.
Yeah.
I don't have them on me, so I wouldn't share over the air anyway.
Okay, perfect. That's probably all I have for now. The only other thing I would ask, and I know we talk about this sometimes, and there's really no specific example I'm thinking of, but if there's things before the board that require outside committee input or questions, please feel free to refer, not only to the finance committee, but, utilize some of the other committees that may have some of the information for you. It's come up a couple times in meetings. Like I said, I can't put my thumb on a specific instance at the moment, but utilize us. We're available. We're willing to kind of move our schedule around if needed to discuss things and have joint meetings. So just want to throw that out there. And that's it. Any
Thank you,
questions
Mike.
for me? I didn't realize we'll be meeting next week, so
It's all right.
We may talk
You
about it
got the
again.
ball rolling on a couple of different ends, that's okay.
All right. Thank you.
Anyone else on open time? Going once? Okay, we're going into appointment schedules. Planning board members. Seeing none, we're moving on to, well, a joint meeting with the Finance Committee on special town meeting warrant articles. So I guess we're going to do the warrant articles.
Okay. So the board, has everyone found their warrants? Excellent. Okay. All right, so let's jump into these. The first one we have here, so again, this is for the special town meeting that we are going to be having on October 18th at 7 PM. There is approximately in this document thus far, approximately, let's see, 22 articles. These are ones that the board's discussed over time, financial ones that may have been required or requested by other departments, or just the need to carry on regular business. Again, the board has discussed putting these forward to at least discuss for tonight. If the board wishes to take off any of these, it is, yes?
Because the town moderator's here, and I suspect he's going to chime in, would you mind coming up and sitting in the front row so I can see you? Thank you.
You good?
I'm good.
You good for me to continue? Okay.
Just he's hiding behind people.
No worries. So I handed out everyone 2 documents. You have the special town meeting warrant articles, and then you also have special town meeting article, or warrant, October 18th, 2016. It just gives you the balances of the accounts and attachment numbers and documents, so you can follow along. The first item on here is the payment in lieu of taxes contract. This was something that had come up at a previous meeting. The Board of Assessors was here last week, along with Roy Bishop, one of the consultants, who spoke very strongly about moving forward potentially with CG, Southampton Energy Development LLC. They are proposing a approximately 2 megawatt solar project on Valley Road. And what this article does, and all this article does, is allow the select board to enter into a contract with them. This does not say that the select board at this time thinks this is a great idea. This does not say the select board thinks it's not a great idea. This does not say the select board is going to actually enter into a contract or to the language of the contract. This simply puts the article on town meeting that allows them, the town, to decide whether or not they wish for the select board to be authorized to enter into such a contract. The contract in this case is a payment in lieu of taxes contract or a pilot. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question, because as I'm reading it, the vote will be for us to negotiate and enter into. So the comment I had, can we negotiate and possibly enter into a contractual payment? Because if the contract is not something we want to do, then we want an out. Does this push us to negotiate no matter what? So I just want the ability to say to them, we're not going to do it.
So this right here, as it reads, just for anyone at home who doesn't have the article in front of them, says to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to negotiate and enter into contractual payments in lieu of taxes pilot agreement with CG Energy, Southampton Energy Development LLC for a proposed approximate 2 megawatt capacity commercial solar energy project to be sited on leased farmland located at 41 Valley Road and Old County Road. It doesn't say that you shall, it says that.
They're authorized to.
Okay, so as long as we have an out, that's all I'm concerned
I
about.
don't believe this is binding you in any which way, John.
Right, that's in there, but I just want to clarify it for everybody. Okay.
Any other questions on Article 1? Okay. Article 2, contract, go ahead,
I
Mike.
have one question. Michael Rosenberg, Finance Committee. So it is an option to enter into a contract for a 2 megawatt solar facility on farmland. My question would be, what is the tax liability for the project if it were not to be a pilot program? Do we have any estimates of that, or is this, I know this is just the option, but are we,
We want to look into that beforehand, because we talked about that.
okay.
We want to make sure the money they're offering us is at least what we would get otherwise.
And the other thing I would ask in this going forward, but are pilot programs normal for this situation? Or is it normally a tax structure on private property?
Well, again, we don't have the answers, and that's why we want to make sure that we can look into it before we do it, because I have concerns about the same thing. This is just to push it on this town meeting, so at least we get that ball rolling. So I'm with you, Michael.
Okay, good for Article 2? Okay, Article 2 says, to see if the town will vote to allow the select board to enter into a 5-year contract to provide uniforms to the highway department. This for many may seem like a silly article, but under MGLs and so forth, the select board is limited on the number of years they can enter into a contract for. So anything beyond 3 is generally common practice to put it on a town meeting warrant to get the town to make sure that they authorize the select board to enter into such an agreement. The purpose of doing the 5-year contract is the company they currently use now actually has probably about a $40 or $50 discount per month when you go out a longer period of time than what they currently have. This, again, does not bind us. This does not require us to enter into a contract specifically with this company or another company. It just allows us to do so if the town, or the select board rather, so choose.
Okay.
Okay. The next item on here, Concom had asked to put this on. Every year, you may recall, or every couple years rather, we have a lease with Robert Fletcher for the Zipta farmland for use and maintenance of the Zipta Conservation Farm. We've been doing this for a period of time at this point. The Concom asked if we could do this for a longer block of time, so instead of every couple years, it was a longer set of time, in this case 10 years. So this article is to see if the town will vote to authorize the board to negotiate and enter into a 10-year lease with Robert Fletcher for the Zipta farmland for use and maintenance of the Zipta Conservation Farm located at Glendale Road.
Has the Concom voted on this already?
I believe so. I believe so. We'd have to pull up their minutes, and I think Marla's right here. Marla, yes?
Yes.
Yes, Marla says yes. You snuck in on me.
Mike wants to talk too.
Okay, Mike.
Michael Rosenberg, Finance Committee.
Here.
My question is related to the previous lease agreements. What is the lease amount and for what term? I mean, obviously, we'd be looking to continue whatever that amount was, and where do the funds come from?
Funds come from the farm.
Yeah. They're paying us to lease the land. We're not leasing the land from them. So Fletcher Farms wants to lease land that we own.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Okay. So the next article on here was requested by the Board of Water Commissioners. We've been through the language a couple times. Water hydrant bylaw. The language is simply to see if the town will vote to amend the general bylaws of the town of Southampton by adding the following section: fire hydrant use as written. No person or persons shall willfully open or tamper with any fire hydrant to cause damage and/or to allow water to flow on any public or private property in the town of Southampton unless previously authorized to do so by the water department or fire chief. Each unauthorized opening or tampering of a hydrant shall constitute a separate offense. Penalty shall not exceed $200 per offense. Any questions? Excellent. Okay. The next piece is non-criminal ticketing bylaw. This bylaw was much longer, and if it's okay, I'd like to come back to this at the end, because I do have a couple comments that came in a few minutes ago from town council that I want to look at. The next piece here, so we're going to jump into the fiscal year FY17 operating appropriations, and the first 3 articles we have are CPC. I'll go over them briefly. If there are any questions, I believe Virginia is still hanging out to my right over here, so she can happily answer any inquiries folks may have. The first one is for the Greenway Committee. This is to transfer from undesignated reserved in the amount of $37,776 to the Greenway Committee to fund the acquisition of property and engineering costs of the Greenway project. We talked about this briefly a couple of weeks ago. This has to do with the fact that when the original article was approved by town meeting, a few years ago. It was connected to the land grant, as folks may recall at some point. In the recent past, we actually said to the state we're not going to be able to fulfill our side of the land grant due to holdups on the negotiating side of things, and we didn't think it was fair to hold on to keep those funds encumbered when someone else could use them. We can still apply again. However, where we're running into difficulties is we're still working on the negotiation side of things, and we currently don't have any legal funds to access because all the funds were tied directly to the land grant previously. So as a result, we had to go back and ask for additional funds from CPC to move forward with this piece of the project. Questions? Okay. The next piece here is from the historic preservation for the town clock. This is in the amount of $8,400 to the Historic Commission to fund the restoration of the town clock. Any questions?
When's the last time that worked?
Virginia has all those answers, and she's on her way.
I don't know exactly.
It's right 2 times a day.
Virginia Ahart, Chair of the Community Preservation Committee. I don't really know when was the last time. But the hand on the north side has been off for years because they're wooden hands. And the wood had rotted and begun to fall apart. And so possibly for a while, the clock ran correctly on 3 sides. The other thing is, I don't ever remember it chiming the hour. Now, it's not going to run 24 hours a day chiming, but a part of this would be to have it chime the hour during the daytime. And I don't ever remember hearing that.
I remember that when I was a kid on the farm.
You could hear it.
60 years old now, so that's got to be 50 years ago.
Well, I've been here for 42 now,
Yeah,
or 44 years, and I never have heard it.
Charlie beat you.
yeah.
So
I was out in the field with the cows.
You
and I
know.
heard the bell.
So this
sometime
will-
after the time he came in from the field, it
So
quit.
this completely restores it to operating condition, all 4 sides?
All 4 sides, they will have to cut out, use the old hand as a guide.
Right.
Cut it out, get it gilded, and it includes buying parts for the mechanical part. It used to be hand wound, and those of you who've been around a while may remember that it was Herm
Alex
Andrews.
Parker. Alex Parker.
Well, after that, it was Herm Andrews that could make the trip up the church
Yeah.
tower to wind it.
Boy,
But
nice
it will
one.
be electric now. And I might indicate, it is the town's clock, so that we don't get into any problems, people saying we're supporting the church. It is the town's clock, which is housed in the steeple of the church.
Thank you, Virginia. Heather, you're up to bat.
Okay, sounds good. All right, the next article, Article 8, we have here is the Wildlife Memorial Sign. So this is another transfer from CPC, this time from Open Space Recreation Account, in the amount of $1,000 to fund the Wildlife Interpretive Sign in memory of Edward Need Jr. to be placed at the Zipta Farm Conservation Area, featuring wildlife photographs taken by the late Edward Need Jr. I know it sounds like I was going on, but I was done after junior. Just didn't expect the junior to,
Stop it like that.
yes, yes.
Any questions?
Okay.
Next article.
Okay, FY17 budget line item transfers. So these first 2 articles here are simply line item transfers from one to the next, for the most part anyway. The first piece is to transfer the sum of $8,258.22 to the workers' comp line, and this is to be taken from the insurance general line. Every year, we never seem to get this equation right. One account is up, one account is down. Every year, we have different amounts of general insurance claims versus workman's comp claims, and despite our best efforts, we generally do okay. We just don't budget it in the correct line and always have to do a transfer. That's all this is clearing up a current negative balance for that piece. The current balance in general insurance, where we're taking the funding, would be $10,837. So there's actually, will still be a couple thousand left in that. The next item is the transfer of standby fire wages in the amount of $37,900 to the EMT standby line, and it's to be taken from the ambulance receipts reserved for appropriation account. The current balance as of yesterday in that account was $64,284. So there are enough funds for it. The reason it's coming from this account and the reason the $37,900 is needed, if you recall, at the beginning of the year, it was determined that we would continue paying standby folks over at the fire department $100 an hour. I take that back. That's a great rate. I'll take the job. $100 a night, sorry. It's $100 a night, and previously it had been $50. So when you change it to double the rate, you're doubling the annual cost. So previously, the $37,900 and some change had got us through a full year at 2 people at $50 standby pay, and now because we've doubled it, we've doubled the total expense, which means now we're going to be short $37,900.
So this will
Yes.
get us from January to June.
That's a belief, yes.
Think we
Charlie?
jumped over 10 police uniforms?
No, do you have the old version, Charlie?
I got the one that had the paper clip on it.
Do you have the one that says draft board backwards?
Yeah, it's all right. I get so many copies, it's like, look at this.
I skipped over because that was the one we deleted.
That's what I thought.
At the
but then I
police chief's
saw it on there
request.
And I was like, okay,
No worries.
either way.
Okay, any questions on that? Is that clear? Mike?
One question, Mike Rosenberg, Finance Committee. The 2015 management letter for the town referenced 2014 recommendations about cleaning up the reconciliation project of ambulance receipts and recovering revenue that were not recoverable or were hard to find. Have any steps been made to bolster that process, which obviously affects the transfer for this? Just kind of a question. I know it's come up in the past, I'm just following up.
This sounds like a one-on-one meeting, Mike. So the answer to that question, to the best of my knowledge, is we haven't come up with anything yet. It has been something we've discussed a few times. And currently, the first of every month, we've been meeting with the treasurer, accountant, assessor, and myself, and we have been going over things finance-related, and this month is supposed to be starting to look at everything in the audit that we may have not touched yet that we're supposed to be working on for projects, if that helps.
Next.
Am I continuing?
Yes.
Okay. Section B, operating stabilization. So before we talk about all these articles, I want to refer everyone to that other sheet I handed you, which is the packet of information. And simply there, you're just going to look, it says operating stabilization balance is $274,733. Okay. So the first, and these items are all to come out of operating stabilization. So, first item here is the photocopier paper line, to transfer the sum of $1,500 to this line from the operating stabilization. What had happened with this line, a couple things. First of all, for several years, we had actually included a combination of the town's paper supply need and photocopier expense with the police departments. Because once upon a time, town hall was all one, included police and town employees, and what happens is it separated, but the account line never did. This year, we tried to catch up and separate the line, so we knew there were going to be a couple adjustments. The second thing is we switched our contract for our photocopier after the annual town meeting last year. In the cost, although it was less, it still had to encumber the cost of buying out the old contract, which would ultimately cost us more at the end of the day. So they took on some of those costs, passed just a minor piece of it down to us, but it's still something we had to incur, and we did not expect or budget for that. So in order to continue paying those bills throughout the end of the year and actually have funds for paper as well, we figure $1,500 should be able to put us at that piece. Questions? Excellent. Article 12, consultant fees. I don't know if the board wishes this one. This was one Charlie and I had talked about, and we had put it on here. The same option is to simply take the funds and put it in the selectmen expenses account. Do have it as well. This is to transfer the sum of $5,000 to create a new select board consultant line or put it in selectmen expenses. This is just to provide funding to the town, to the select board when they have transitions of positions or anything else that they might need to hire a consultant for and have assistance.
I firmly believe we need to have this money, because it's like the police chief's thing. We had to go and scurry for money for his contract, and we'll always be turning people over.
I agree.
Okay.
Do we want to create a new line, or do we want to just put in selectmen expenses?
I think we should create a new line.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree.
All right, so the next item is Article 13. So Article 13, actually, we'll just start with each independently. It's easier than summing them up. Article 13 is to transfer the sum of $3,200 to the police chief salary line. This is to cover the higher negotiated price that the select board and the police chief had reached in their latest contract negotiations, summing at $95,000 for salary. The line was previously only funded at $91,800 when we did the appropriation in May, so this would bring it up to the $95,000. The contract is subject to appropriation, but this would allow the police chief to be compensated at the negotiated rate. Any questions? Okay. Next item, building commissioner salary. This one is similar and different at the same time. This is to transfer the amount of $15,104 to the building commissioner salary line. The building commissioner has been consistently working approximately 40 hours per week since employed and has been compensated at 31 hours for his salary rate. An increase at the current rate, $32.15 per hour at 9 hours additional per week, would put the position at $67,123 per year. The building inspector salary line for FY17 is currently $52,020. So this would be the increase that would bring him from 31 hours at his current rate to 40 hours.
And we all recognize the fact he's putting in those 40 hours, so. Go ahead, Mike.
Michael Rosenberg, Finance Committee. I have two questions here. Actually, does the increase line up with the PQB paperwork? You know, when he was originally hired, does this salary and amount fit it within the?
The salary does.
Okay.
The hours, I suspect not.
Okay, hours do not. My next question is, we have a salaried employee working 31 hours a week, correct? And he has chosen to work more than 31 hours per week at a rate. And because of that, we are going to give him a 30% salary increase for working the extra 9 hours a week.
Well, we're recognizing that the job takes that many hours a week to do. That's how I look at it.
That's the way I'm looking at it, too. He's definitely working over 40 hours, and the reality of it is we need to keep pace with these growths and these different things in town. As you can see by the growth of the town, that reflects directly to the building inspector.
Is new growth up or down this year?
I suspect that we're about the same right now, but then he's been there last year doing it also. I don't have the numbers in front of me to crunch, but when I saw them, it was a strong indication that we're still growing. One of the reasons we wanted to meet with the planning board was to discuss this new growth that's occurring in town.
So my apprehension, not only, I guess, from a personal standpoint and as a finance committee member, is you do set a precedence here for individuals who work under hours to put warrants up to increase their salary and their hours going forward by doing this. So it is a large change, and I'm not doubting he doesn't do the work. I'm not saying that, but it does leave you open to things going forward. And, you know, if it doesn't fit between the PQB guidelines, a meeting should be had, or a discussion with the PQB of how this does or doesn't fit in with what we had agreed when we originally hired him. So
I understand that, but we also have to take things by case basis to make a decision. That's where this went with this one.
you did not consult the PQB on this?
PQB is aware of this.
Okay.
This is not a secret. It's not done in a vacuum.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions on that article? No? Okay. Article 15, Town Accountant Salary, to see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of $5,608 to the Town Accountant Salary line. The pay increase of $3.58 per hour for 30 hours per week. The increase would make the salary would make the salary approximately $44,000 annually. FY17 is $38,785.20. Questions?
Yeah, I guess I have a concern, not that the accountant doesn't deserve it, but this is the only one we're taking outside the evaluation process that we're doing now.
That's
So
quite
this
correct.
This is a precedent here. So that would be my concern. Why not wait until the study goes through?
We've been working with this individual for 2 years to increase her salary, and
Yeah, I agree.
it hasn't moved.
No, I'm not saying she doesn't deserve it. I'm just saying, is this precedent going to bite us? Because other people can now do that
She
instead
has,
of waiting.
she has a contract,
Yeah.
and it's a contract negotiation, much as the same as any of the other contracts.
The contract is due up when? If I don't remember the date.
I think it's a year,
Right.
yeah.
So
It's
that's,
about a year.
so isn't that when the contract should be negotiated?
If both parties want to open up the contract for a renegotiation, that's what happened.
Okay, I guess I'll be a minority in that one. I'm just concerned with the process, not the amount.
So the new line total there should actually be $44,393.20, not $44. I will go back and fix that one. She might be upset if it's decreased significantly. Okay, the next article I put on there, Charlie had asked me to stick this on in case the board wished to pursue this one. They're still working on negotiations with the fire chief, but this is the possibility of putting an article on to transfer funds for the fire chief's salary line.
Fire chief's negotiations are going to go on in executive session tonight. We may end up with finding a number. If we do, then we can put it in this town meeting. If we don't put the article forward now, I know an individual that won't accept it off the floor.
So,
Make sure.
Yeah.
Robert Floyd, Town Moderator, 15 East Street. To leave it blank and fix it in a motion, the argument is people at home wouldn't bother coming if it was only $1,000.
Your point's
But they
taken.
would come if it was 6,000, so there needs to be a,
If we do not reach a conclusion tonight, then there will not be an article.
fine,
If we reach a conclusion tonight, there'll be a dollar amount.
great, thank you.
okay. All right, Article 17, this is to transfer the sum of $6,656 to a police admin wage line. I'm not sure, I've been talking with Vicki on whether this position existed once before, but regardless, it's to either establish or reinstate, depending on your interpretation, the police department admin for the period of January 1st through June 30th at 16 hours per week for 26 weeks. At just under $16 an hour, it's really like $15.61, because that's what we currently pay. But the $16 made everyone's calculator happier, so. Questions?
Mike Rosenberg, Finance Committee. My question is, so last year's budget process, there was a wish list of items to be funded. One of them was a HR consultant or a consultant for the town, which we did not find the funds to fully fund. The other item was a fire and police admin for 18 hours a week, I think. I can't remember the hours in the hourly rate. Why are we now only looking at the police department and not the police and fire, utilizing one individual?
The feeling was to start small, try to get something established with the police department, see how its functionality is, and then expand on that as it develops.
Okay. It just, with the ambulance receipts issue, for instance, it would take the burden off the fire chief from having to call and chase some of those receipts from the companies. So, incorporating it as both now, I mean, there will be growing pains, but it may pay dividends with some of the revenue recovery for some of those items.
Are you asking us to double this amount and include the fire department?
It's your article. I'm just bringing up the budget wish list that we were given last year from the select
I
board.
understand, because I was
Yeah.
part of that process, and we do
Yeah.
recognize the fact that both departments need admin.
I mean, I'm going to be perfectly blunt with you. I'm personally not a proponent of funding new positions through transfers from stabilization funds, because at the end of the year, next year, you have to tax to fund it. You can't necessarily hope you have operation stabilization funds to fund it in October, right? So the more you tack into this, the more the tax base will have to pick up next year. So I think it's a great position to help, ease the chiefs, and maybe help with some of the revenue recovery, but, it's adding more to the stabilization transfer, which is not the,
And Mike, that's one of the reasons why we're trying to start small, because we don't know what revenue is going to be next year.
But if the revenue, just going on what Mike says, if the revenue doesn't cover it, then we're cutting somewhere else to
Right.
fund this position.
and there's other, I mean,
Twice the amount.
it's not just this transfer too, right? You think about the previous 7 and the previous 30 and the previous 5 associated with the other ones. I mean, there's an amount of funds here, and yeah, you can tax up to a certain point, but like John says, something has to give, and then when you reach the tipping point, something gets cut. So just some food for thought.
Your point's taken, Mike. We respect your minute. Heather?
Article 18, to see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of up to, I don't know the exact number, $15,000 to the sick time insurance line. What this is this would be a new line to allow the coverage of short-term disability insurance through a third-party carrier. For those who may recall the previous discussions, the town currently has a 26-week short-term disability self-funded policy where if any employee gets injured at any time not on work, broken leg, broken ankle, an illness, whatever it may be, they are eligible, as long as they've been an employee of the town for a period of time, to get up to 26 weeks of 75% pay. This is something we've been unable to really predict for and so forth, and it's also hard to administer in an insurance system internally. We don't have the capabilities of insurance companies to go out and actually follow up on claims, request documentation, and so forth. This has been an ongoing discussion before the select board, and the select board had asked to see if the townspeople were interested in moving this potential forward, and that is why there is funding proposed on Article 18 in the amount of $15,000 to fund said line.
It's interesting. Everyone talks about this as insurance for the employees, but it's really insurance for the town. Any comments? Thoughts? Nothing? Okay. Move on, Heather.
You good, John?
No, but that's okay.
Do you want to add
It's
anything?
insurance for the employee. I mean,
It's insurance for the employee, but it protects the town from the 26 weeks of payout if someone gets injured or two people get
if you
injured.
swap one out for the other,
Right.
it does, yes.
Well, that's what we're planning on doing
Yeah.
if this
Yeah.
Yeah,
passes.
but I mean, just to say it doesn't help the employee isn't accurate. So I just want to make sure the
It
employees
does help
know. Yeah.
employees, but it's insuring the town.
No, I
Takes the
agree with
li-
you.
Exposure, liability exposure from
Yeah.
the town and puts
Yeah.
it with an insurance company, and it fixes it at this number. We had examples from PPPB,
Yeah.
group getting in an accident, going to a ball game.
We're trying to
5
minimize
employees.
this.
Yeah, that wasn't a great example, but yeah.
I know,
got
that's
you.
the example
It's
you gave
just
us.
an insurance policy. If we have somebody out for 26 weeks, we would have to pay them X amount. And if we don't, this insurance that we're paying will never be used. So we're taking a crapshoot, but I agree 100%, this is a better way to do it.
That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
It's
You know, of the two ways, this is,
protecting both sides with
yeah, it's a much better way to do
less
it.
risk. Okay.
Okay, the next item is the HVAC library consulting fee. So this article is to transfer the sum of $6,800 for consulting services related to the HVAC system for the library procurement process. So folks may recall a couple years ago at an annual town meeting, the town voted to approve a capital project in the amount of approximately $47,000 for the HVAC system at the library to update their controls, to update their air conditioning units, update the heater, boiler, and the hot water tank.
Yeah,
I believe that's all the items.
everything.
Don't ask me the correct order. I'm not positive off the top of my head what order they're listed. But anyway, after quite a bit of time and having to engage the services of a consultant to draw up the plans, to write the specifics, to write the specs, the cost to the library was incurred, and the bill is coming in the amount of $6,800. The reason this is relevant in putting this on here is they were originally going to take it out of the $47,000 that was put aside for the capital project. The problem you run into is as soon as you do that, you reduce the ability for the library to even get one of those items checked off the list, let alone more than one item. So separating this out allows this piece to be taken aside as it should be, and then allows the capital project itself that was originally $47,000 to actually stand in the account so that that can be accessed first in its entirety. Questions?
Okay.
Mike?
Not a numbers question. We were aware of the predicament with the funding. Just curious if we ever went through with any of the procurement or if we had to just stop and kind of restart. I know we were on the verge of going out to bid.
Yes, so bids are out. They actually had a walkthrough yesterday at 10:30 a.m. Bids are due, I think, approximately October 11th. I'll have to double check that. Once the bids come in, they're actually split into 4 components. So the bid has a base bid, which is just the temperature controls. Then there's the first alternative, the second and the third. Each of them are separated out, and they have to be taken in that order. So it's the lowest bid, meeting all the qualifications, going in that order. So if we went out to shopping and each of these items were $10 and we only had $20, we're only getting the first 2, but it has to be the base and then the first alternative. It can't mix and match.
Okay.
Okay. Everyone good on that one? Okay. The next item, this is for a prior year bill in the amount of $77.48 from FY16 to Ben Meadows for disposable gloves. The Highway Department around June had purchased disposable gloves. This is attachment B in your little packet. And you actually see here, there's the bill in the amount of $77.48. That was charged for this piece, and they say they invoiced it on June 22nd, but they didn't send us the bill until a few weeks ago, so. Questions on that?
Next.
Alrighty, the next item is another prior year bill. You do not have the attachment for this one at this time, and this one gets a little more complicated, which we always enjoy. So, this is the prior year bill for the FY16 MHQ bill for cruiser accessories. So this had to do with the strobing lights, with the decals, all those components. This was originally, I think we discussed this at a prior Board of Selectmen meeting. The original purchase was in the amount of $10,000. We encumbered the funds in a procurement order. Almost a year later, they were trying to close up the books. There was discussion about, hey, I don't think we ever got the bill for this. There was, some confusion, what have you. At the end of the day, the procurement order was closed. The bill was not paid. According to MHQ at the time, they had a changeover of their staff or so, and they said there's no bill on record. So then all of a sudden, when we ordered again this year, they sent us last year's bill and said, hey, by the way, don't forget, you still owe us money. That's the long story short. So ultimately, we have a $10,000 liability to pay. The reason you only see $7,834 on here is we did have a little bit remaining in the capital from the purchase of the cruiser package originally, so it reduces the cost of the bill from the $10,000 and change to $7,834.34. Questions? All good? Excellent. All right, the last item on this list is the capital stabilization item. The amount currently we have is $20,000. This goes back to the HVAC system for the library we were just talking about. So how this all works out is, again, we talked about the initial appropriation for the library was in the amount of $47,000. When we've had the estimates come back from the consultant, remember, the consultant is just the consultant, he's just guessing. We have no idea what numbers are going to come in. We've been surprised in the past by bids that come up much higher or much lower. But the purpose of putting this article forward is to actually put additional funds into that $47,000. According to the research of our consultant, he expects, and it's advertised to be a project with all 4 components, the base and the 3 alternates, to come in the ballpark of about $70,000. Putting another $20,000 in this puts us at $67,000, and the library, if they needed to, could always pull from trust funds or additional accounts that they do have access to. The idea is to be able to give them the best opportunity to purchase all of these items at once, so they all fit, we don't have to go out for procurement again, and so forth. The $20,000 would bring you very close to the end. On that other sheet of paper, again, you see the balance of the capital. It's only $23,981. Capital Improvement Committee did meet last week, and they did approve putting forward an even higher amount that doesn't, we don't have the funding for, but I would say, suffice it to say, if we look at their minutes, that we could argue that if they approved it for 30-something thousand, then they improve it for 20,000 because it's less than the amount they approved for. That being the case, the board does need to decide a couple things. Number one, if they wish to move forward with this article. Number two, if they want to actually put an article forward in the amount of 20,000 when there's only 23,000 in the account, that's wiping it really low. The good piece of news is we should have our bids in a few days, if not a week or so, before town meeting. So we'll know, are we just wasting our breath here at 20,000? Does it not even come close? Or, if we actually had whatever article amounts you put in this and used it, we'd be able to purchase everything at the lowest bidder.
Can we put up to the sum of 20,000? Because I
Yeah, we
just,
can always, the moderator generally allows us to
We always
reduce
take
the
it
number
back.
later on. So we could put it on for 20,000, reduce it at the end of the day at the meeting to 1,000 or anything under 20.
so once-
19,999.
so once we get the actual,
Yes, but we can't go 21. You can only go down, you can't go up. Okay,
unless the moderator was generous on them.
yes.
He's not.
Okay, never mind, we can't go up, yeah.
All right, so if we're good with those, we're going to go back, if it's okay with the board, to the non-criminal disposition of violations, bylaws, rules, and regs. It's your first attachment in that second packet. So what this was, we've been talking about this for quite some time. The board's talked about it, different department heads have had a lot of concern about this, non-criminal ticketing. It's discussed everywhere. Essentially, it allows an option for, it's more of an administrative procedure. So you write someone out a ticket, they bring the ticket to the town clerk's office, they pay the bill. As opposed to, oh, I'm so sorry I gave you a ticket, I'll see you in court next week. This still allows you the option to do the regular traditional approach. You don't have to do this. It means you may use this piece. And it also provides the opportunity that, I believe it's after at least 21 days, that you can then take a ticket that's not being paid and bring it to the magistrate anyway. But this at least gives people another option, another way to do it, and it's non-criminal piece. So we're going to walk through the language on here just so people at home can understand. It's a couple sections. It's a little lengthy. It's nothing creative. We've simply taken the language from other towns who have adopted this from a template from Massachusetts State, had come up with the document back in 1990 something or another. I have the document in
It
my
was some
file.
time ago.
It was quite a period of time prior to now when they had come up with it. And I'm not sure if I can actually, I wonder if I can locate it. Nope. Okay. So I'll read this out here for people at home. Section 1, there is hereby established in the town of Southampton, pursuant to the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 21D, a system of non-criminal disposition of violations of the town bylaws and/or rules and regulations of its departments, boards, commissions, committees, and officials, the violation of which is subject to a specific penalty. Section 2, any person taking cognizance of a violation of any bylaw, rule, or regulation which that person is empowered to enforce may give to the offender written notice or appear before the clerk of the district court,
having jurisdiction thereof at any time during office hours, but not later than 21 days after the date of said notice. The form, content, timing, manner of delivery, and processing of such notice shall comply with the provisions of said Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 21D. Section 3, any person notified to appear before the clerk of the district court as herein before provided may, either personally or through a duly authorized agent, appear and make payment of the stipulated fine to the Southampton Town Clerk, or mail to the Southampton Town Clerk, together with a notice, such sum of money not exceeding $300 as the town may fix for the penalty of violation for the bylaw, rule, or regulation. While payment in person may be made in cash, any payment mailed to the town clerk must be in the form of postal note, money order, or check. Payment to the town clerk shall operate as a final disposition of the case and shall not be deemed to be a criminal proceeding. Section 4, any person so notified to appear who desires to contest the violation alleged in the notice may, within 21 days of the date of said notice, submit a request for hearing in writing to the clerk of the district court. Any such hearing shall not be deemed to be a criminal proceeding. Section 5, any person so notified who fails to confess the offense charged by paying the fine within the time specified, or who fails to pay the sum fixed as a penalty after hearing and finding, shall be subject to an application for and the issuance of a criminal complaint for the violation of the said bylaw, rule, or regulation. Section 6, non-criminal disposition may be applied to the following bylaws, rules, regulations enforced by the authorized personnel indicated, with the police department to be considered an enforcement authority in all cases, even if not specifically noted, and with penalties as noted. So now when we get into this section, town council did send me an email back, and they said the first 3 things you need to cross out because you no longer can do them. We might have been able to do them at one time, but we can't do them. For those at home who have no idea what I'm talking about because they don't have the document in front of them, we had originally stated violations of the state building code, plumbing code, and wiring code, and that is not able to be included in this document according to council and their email about 45 minutes ago. The rest of the items on here we have pulled from each of the bylaws in the town bylaws that are currently as is. I know Charlie and I had discussed this prior, which is, it's up to the board. If, they do wish to move forward with this bylaw, we can include all of these things. We can include only certain ones. We can do whatever the board wishes. We can always come back and add things later. So just to run through the list of these, the enforcement officer is either, generally stated in the actual bylaw itself, or it's kind of implied by the nature of the piece, and the fines are also listed here, and I can mention those briefly. But you have alcohol on public grounds, $50 offense, dog kennels, $20 per offense, dogs at large, $20 per offense, fire lanes, $50 per offense, illicit connections discharge, first offense, second, and third plus goes from 50, 100 to 300, littering, $300 per offense, matter on public way, $20 per day, overnight parking, $20 per day, preservation historical buildings, $300. Hold.
It lists here as one of the enforcements as the Historic Commission. I would strike that. All the rest of these are departments that deal with enforcement. Historic Commission has no familiarity with enforcement of codes or general laws. I would not include them in that. The building inspector can do the enforcement for them as listed.
That is 37. 35, 36, 37. The language in 37 specifically states, let's see, any owner of a building subject to this bylaw that demolished the building without first obtaining a demolition permit in accordance with the provisions of this bylaw shall be subject to a fine of not more than $300. Each day the violation exists shall constitute a separate offense until a faithful restoration of the demolished building is completed or unless otherwise agreed by the commission. Let's see. If a building subject to this bylaw is demolished without first obtaining a demo permit, no building permit shall be issued for a period of 2 years. Let's see. Up here. Section 6, Enforcement and Remedies. The commission and/or building inspector are each specifically authorized to institute any and all actions and proceedings.
And I understand that if they want to take and litigate it in court and file the proper, I have no issue with it. But I do not want to give them a ticket book to go around as a commission.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure you were familiar with what the bylaw said.
Here with the bylaw. The bylaw implies that if they want to bring a general complaint in court, they can. This is a section of a new bylaw that allows people to have the authority to issue tickets.
Okay.
The idea of the tickets is to expedite remedies. Somebody demolishing a building without proper permitting is not going to be expedited by a ticket of this sort. But that's me. I don't know what the board
Well, it
thinks.
says $300 per day until proper restoration, from what you read. That's a lot of money.
That would mean they'd have to issue a ticket every day.
I think if, yeah.
I just do not view the Conservation Commission versed in this enough to be sitting here right.
Historical
Historic,
Commission.
I'm sorry. No offense.
Marla.
But, don't hit me. But the reality of it is, for somebody that takes this to court all the time, I think the building commissioner, absolutely. And he can enforce it, and that's fine. But people getting elected or appointing to a commission gets awkward.
Okay.
Does the board agree to this?
That it gets awkward?
It always gets awkward.
Like now?
Yeah. Like now, John. It's really awkward.
I don't have an issue with it if it's under the Mass General Law, to be honest with you.
Well, this is the non-criminal ticketing, which gives the town
Right.
to allow people to write tickets. I just see this as, it just doesn't work for me. That one, everything else works great. I've watched non-criminal ticketing, I've used non-criminal ticketing. It's a nice approach to things without making it,
Yeah, I agree.
you know,
Yeah.
okay.
So I'm striking that piece.
Do I hear a motion to strike it? Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Can I ask,
Yeah, just striking just the
His-
historic.
Just that, the Historic Commission,
Yeah.
that's it.
can I ask a question, now that we're done with that? Two things. One, matter on public way, a couple back up. What is that? It's not like littering, because that's right above it.
What section is it, John?
Article 11?
It says,
I don't know. I'm going to tell you, though.
section 11?
It says Article...
Article 11 here.
11.
I went too far. Hold on.
I
10.
suspect that's, this is.
Okay, matter on public ways or places. No person shall place or cause to be placed in any street, lane, common, park, court, alley, or other public place in the town any dirt, filth, ashes, garbage, decaying animal, and vegetable matter, or snow, ice, or rubbish of any description, providing, however, that it shall not be unlawful for any person to place ashes, sand, or other suitable material upon any public sidewalk in the town. Section 2, any person who violates this bylaw shall be liable to a penalty of $20 per violation.
So if I throw paper on the ground littering, I get $300, but if I put,
Well, the snow and
stuff?
ice was in there too, which is
Yeah.
shoveling their
They
driveway.
shovel it into the
They
road,
Push across the road, is that gonna
that'll
qualify?
trigger it.
We are in the process of working on revising and modifying and reviewing the bylaws.
okay. Now, another...
We can, if the board's not comfortable with any specific ones, I mean, we can strike them from the non-criminal ticketing piece, or you can leave them and they'll be fun to fix later.
Well, my other question is where it says like $300 per offense, or just straight $300, is that up to, or is that the actual fine that has to be levied?
So let's see, so the first one you see it on is the historical one, right? So that's back here. Not more than, so we can write up to.
Okay, good. That's,
So I can insert that language, up to $300. Everything else on this page says per offense or per day.
Okay.
so which one's up to?
The historical one that you guys have debated.
Just modified the one.
Yep, just writing the words up to $300.
Okay.
All right, the next, and we get to move on to the next page of these?
Per offense. It's always
It says, shall be subject to a fine of not more than $300. Each day the violation exists constitutes a separate violation. So you're right, we should add per day, or per day. It did say day, right?
That one, yeah.
Not hallucinating here.
How do they-
Each day,
They tore it down.
so per day.
You have to come to an agreement with the Historical
Okay.
Commission.
Am I good to move on?
You're good to move on.
Okay, so sidewalk clearing, $10 per day. Soliciting prohibited, $20 per offense. Swimming pools, $5 per day.
What does that mean?
I was waiting for someone to
have a
ask that
swimming
one,
pool, I
John.
get charged?
Swimming pools. Section 1, Article 9. A swimming pool within the meaning of this bylaw shall be any permanent depression in the ground or a permanent container of water, either above or below the ground, in which water of more than 12 inches in depth is contained and which is primarily for the purpose of bathing and swimming. Section 2, all outdoor pools to be constructed or which are already constructed shall be enclosed by a barrier not less than 4 feet in height, which shall be constructed in such a manner and of a type not readily climbed by children. All gates and doors opening through such enclosures shall be of the self-latching look type and shall be kept locked when the pool is not in actual use or left unattended. Section 3, a pool shall not be nearer than 10 feet to any lot line. Section 4, a person who violates this bylaw shall be liable to a penalty not to exceed $5 per day for each violation.
So if it's not enclosed or it's closer than 10 feet, it sounds like. Okay.
If it doesn't meet the requirements set out in the statute, they are potentially subject to a $5 per day violation.
And just so you know, those general statutes that were put together years ago were because of drowning and stuff.
Right. I just want to understand what we were doing.
Yeah.
Am I continuing? Unauthorized taking of water from a hydrant, this is the new bylaw that was proposed prior to this one, and that is $200 per offense.
So it's just duplicating the individual warrant article.
Yeah, so the reason I put the other one first, because for some reason, if the other one doesn't pass, we need to make a sketch, and when the board does the motion to approve this article, they would say, except, please strike unregistered motor, or what is it, unauthorized taking of water from a hydrant. Okay. The next one down is unregistered motor vehicle, $10 per day. And the last one is water use, $0 for the first offense, $25 the second, and $50 for the third. And I'm guessing someone's going to ask me what that means.
You're watering your lawn.
Article, what is that? That
This is going to
is
come up at the town meeting for sure.
36.
It's not funny.
It's special.
You make this click.
Oh, so this one's a much longer one that I won't harm people's ears with. I'll just read the categories. You have authority, purpose, definitions. They talk about person, state of water supply emergency, state of water supply conservation, water users or water consumers, declaration of a state or water supply conservation, restricted water uses, public notification of a state of water supply conservation, termination of a state of water supply conservation notice, state of water supply emergency, compliance with DEP orders, and penalties. Any person violating this bylaw shall be liable to the town in the amount of $25 for the second violation and $50 for each subsequent violation, which shall inure to the Southampton blah, blah, blah.
Any of those if they violate them. Okay.
That's why I just used the word water use.
Robert Floyd, 15 East Street. I'm very clear on this. I believe we're all on the same page, and allow me to be redundant. None of these fees were raised. This is exactly that exists. Okay, good.
Actually,
My poor assistant got the joy of going through our current bylaws and highlighting any time the word fine or violation or fee was added, so I pulled it directly from there.
the police department had discussions with us about speeding and traffic signs. That doesn't seem like it made the list.
If it was not in our bylaws, it did not make the list, because when I've had discussion with other departments have not provided me with the information despite being given the prompt to do so.
So what we're probably looking at is a January town meeting to adopt some bylaws relative to speeding and stop signs and that.
Whatever it may be, yes.
Yeah.
And just one more note too, is this is also subject, town council is taking a look at just a couple more pieces with the animal control officer and things, so we might have to modify by the time we do the motions. So,
Okay.
any other questions on any of these? Or does the board wish to vote to approve the warrant pending the article relative to the fire department salary?
Well, Mike wants to say something, so please, Mike.
I just have one last thing, Mike Rosenberg, Finance Committee. The 2014 DLS report did not recommend utilizing stabilization funds for operating expenses. It kind of echoes what me and John were talking about before. I knew I'd read it, and I just had to look it up to kind of refresh my memory on that. So just keep that in mind as you may or may not vote some of these forward. They are not recommended by the DLS.
Yeah,
Operating
it
expenses.
adds up to about $52,000 from operational stabilization. This one time it'll come from there, next year that's added onto the budget. Just-
Correct. And that does not include anything that may come up in, January going forward, right? So
Obviously, actually, yeah, some of these fees were only for half a year, so it'd be even more.
keep that in mind. Thank you.
I will entertain a motion to accept this for town meeting, with the caveat that the fire chief's line item will be addressed after our exec meeting.
I'll second for conversation. I guess I have some agreement with Mike on a few of these, but I think from our point of view, our job is to get it on the floor and let the voters come and vote on them and, discuss them. So,
The argument can be made that if we put it in front of the voters and we want to pull something back, we can do it at the floor.
yeah, or if it doesn't pass by the 2/3 or 9/10 or whatever, but at least they get a shot at looking at it and reviewing it, so.
Yeah, I agree. That's,
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
all right.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you, Heather.
Charlie,
Yes,
over here.
we just voted. Bob, didn't you?
Robert Floyd, 15 East Street. The town moderator will hold the special town meeting article information session either on October 6th, Thursday at 7 o'clock, or Thursday, October 13 at 7 o'clock. I reserve this room for both nights, and as we get closer to the date, I'll check with who's available, and we'll select one.
Are you going to post that on the website?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are now with the town administrator's report.
Hi. So I only have one item to report to the board tonight. I'll do a full report next week when we get into the new month. As folks may have heard already through rumor, newspaper, what have you, I have been offered a position in the town of Ashburnham as their town administrator. I have accepted the position. I start there on November 28th. My last day for the town of Southampton on the record books will be November 25th. I will actually, my last physical day will be closer to November 10th. I have some vacation to use up that we're going to try to utilize. In my submission of my resignation letter to the chair of the select board, I've also included a packet of information, including my recommendation moving forward, projects that I'm hoping to wrap up before I depart, information on consultants that I'd recommend, information on potential interims who may be interested. They're working on submitting some information. I put all the posting materials and so forth in there so that you all have the documents in your fingertips. I've also, at the request of the chair, have put this item or package of items, so to speak, on the select board's agenda for October 4th. Any questions?
Yes, we're happy for you, but not for us. Thank you.
What can I say? It's a good step up for you. I understand that. This is a tough job to be in. I recognize that. You don't make friends doing it, but I think you did a good job.
Thank you.
And we'll have the cake later on.
What's that?
We'll have the cake later on.
Oh, okay, very good,
Good luck.
thanks.
All right, select board updates. Any updates from anybody? Jackie?
Well, the Community Preservation Committee has put out this wonderful flyer and what it offers, and I just wanted to go over that. Virginia Ahart here is from the chair, and it's what they ask people to do for ideas for upcoming projects. You know, if you have any projects that you want to restore anything in the town, please contact the Community Preservation Committee. And if you want to add to that, Virginia, at all?
Couple things on that. Virginia Ahart, Chair of the Community Preservation Committee. Every year, by the law, by the Community Preservation Act, we must report to the town what we've been doing and have a time to solicit projects throughout the town. And they can come from anybody. We really look to our boards, to the select board, and to the other boards and committees, commissions, to come in with projects that fit into one of the categories, which is historic preservation, open space recreation, and
Community housing.
community housing. And this is the one where we have a little difficulty here in Southampton, how we can do that. We don't have an old factory building that could be rehabbed, but we'd love to have even just ideas. And we'd really like to get a lot of townspeople to this meeting at the end of October. We also have a person working with the TV access to do a very short little clip that'll be on TV and eventually be on our website, telling some of our projects in the past so you can get ideas. But please, if you know of anything that needs to be done, historical preservation, conservation type things, recreation, and if you've got any ideas on that housing, please let us know and come on October 26th at 7 o'clock right here to hear our report and to bring projects.
Right. Thank you.
We have funds.
Thank you, Virginia.
Thank you.
Charlie, the Master Planning Implementation Committee met last week, and the quarterly reports are due, so I'm going to do one for the board and present it to them.
Okay.
They'll send it out to everybody after that.
Can you speak a little louder? I can't hear you.
Master Planning Implementation Committee met, their quarterly reports are due, so I'll be filling one out for the select board and passing it in.
Thank you.
Anything, Jim?
No,
The Public Safety Building Committee is going to meet at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning to start discussion about trying to make this approach work again and keeping it within reasonable budgets. Other than that, I have nothing else to report. The handrails are in and all the rest of that kind of stuff, so I guess we'll move on to, there is no boards, departments, or committee reports, is there? All right, new business, Complete Streets Program. I sent an email out to everyone concerning this Complete Streets and the eligibility for grants and stuff like that. I think this board needs to at least acknowledge the fact that there's an interest in this. And if the board would so vote to authorize me to just sign a letter to move it forward, I mean, could end up being a dead end, but Randall's gone through all the training and everything else. I don't have this handy to look at, but it basically could make the town eligible for several $1,000s for taking and improving the streets as time goes on. And it's different than the DOT Chapter 90 money.
And there's no downside.
No, there's no downside that I saw.
So when you, I just want to clarify it for townspeople. So when you say complete streets, what improvements?
It could mean that we need to take an evaluation. There might be sidewalks that are necessary. There might be more access to bike paths, that kind of stuff. It may be that we need to do a study on the streets and how they're resurfaced to determine what kind of covering they have and how to set up a timetable as to when they should be resurfaced or reworked. It's an all-encompassing program. But at this point in time, what we need to do is just simply make a statement that the selectmen are in favor of moving forward with this. We don't have to put any dollars out, and that's it in a nutshell.
You need a motion?
Yeah.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Just send a letter.
Yeah, we'll just send a letter, that's it.
Aye.
I have a question.
Oops.
So how much would something like this cost?
Nothing.
Ultimately, it could, though.
It's a state grant
Right.
to help us move forward. If we send a letter of intent and we go forward,
So it's just a beginning, but ultimately, it could,
yeah.
it could,
But we have to accept it along the way.
Right.
exactly, it's just a beginning, I get it. But
Just
I'm
shows
just,
we're interested.
Yeah.
right, yeah,
It puts us on the list to keep it
Yeah.
moving.
on the list.
That's all it does.
And it's the good list.
I think
It's
I
a
sent
good
this, didn't I send this to everybody?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh.
Just wanted to make sure it didn't cost anything.
Well, there's always a hidden cost in everything, isn't there? I mean, you know,
There is. Eventually.
yeah. Jen, did you get that? Okay. All right, so we're set with that. All in
Well-
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion moves. Next is appointment of driveway regulation committee. Saw one applicant, that was Dan Pellegrini, and I saw an email from Mark Reed.
Yep.
Does the board want to make a motion to accept both of those into this committee? or-
How many, what was the makeup of the committee again? And
Oh, man.
I mean, these are both community folks.
Right.
Dan's from the construction side, Mark's from the
Engineering side.
engineering side, which is both good. So I don't have an issue with either of them.
I think we're just forming this thing. I mean, we still got to have the building inspector, the highway department, Jim's going to be covering on one of them for us.
Yep.
So,
As long as we have a well-rounded committee, I think it's fine. So if you need a motion for these two, I'll make the motion.
Well, do we have to vote the chief in and the highway? Are they automatically on, or how does that work?
I would assume they're automatically on, only because their department head's under our control, and we're
Yeah.
asking them to attend these meetings.
We're
Voted
assigned,
me on, so I don't know if that carried through.
I didn't know we were in control of you, but,
Yeah.
you know,
yeah.
you want to make a motion to appoint James
Well,
Levine?
so how many positions, did we have 7 we were looking for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This puts us at,
Can I address the board, or is this not okay? I don't know if I'm out of line.
I guess the question is, what do you want to talk about?
Oh, about this subject, just because the volunteer information was put on the town website, and according to that, they're looking for 2, just, regular residents of the town, 2 builders, and plus the town officials. So
Right.
I would be, maybe we could leave it out there for another week or so to see if any other applicants come forth. It's
Oh, yeah.
not
This
really
this
the...
won't preclude us adding to them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Correct.
good.
And
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Can we have your name and stuff so the audience knows that you just didn't walk up and,
I thought I announced myself. Heather Pellegrini, 76 Crooked Ledge Road. Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, and I have a thing with only so many members on any committee. I mean, if we get some good candidates out there and we need to expand it, I think we should.
Yeah, I have no problem with this. I mean,
So we have a motion, right, for those
yeah,
two?
we got a second, and Mike's now stood up.
No, he's leaving, he's had it with us. He's all done.
you get a second? Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay.
Get a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
So,
Who's
just to
gonna,
go over the others are
who's
going to
gonna
be,
alert them, though? Somebody's gonna, is Jen gonna put it down that?
Jen, put it in the minutes. Let's see about, you got it in the minutes? Okay.
That we're gonna alert them that they're
Well,
accepted?
Heather should,
Yeah, that's what I mean, yeah.
yeah.
Jen's on the ball.
When I say "we," I mean Heather.
She's listening.
Just making sure that was the we were talking about. The other department heads, I think what we should just simply do is just have Heather send them a memo saying, hey, listen, you're part of this.
You're assigned, yeah.
So we have the fire chief, the highway, and we're doing the building inspector as
Yeah.
well?
Yep.
So that's,
Yeah.
so that's up to 6 people right now.
Include
Yeah.
yourself, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's one seat still open. And
Yeah.
we can still add to it if we want.
Yeah.
If
It's
somebody
an ad
sends in a
hoc
letter.
committee. It's not a, it's not like it's something established at
Yeah,
state
we
law.
won't schedule any meetings for at least a week or so. We'll wait, see what comes in.
Okay, moving on to personnel changes. We now have Lieutenant Ian Ellingsworth, permanent as lieutenant for Town of Southampton Police Department. We also have you want me to take them singly, or you want to do them just as one?
You can go all together, unless we have a question.
All right. Timothy Blaze, part-time police officer. Paul Milnick, custodian, resignation. And I believe
Eileen Kuchar.
Eileen Kuchar, temporary town clerk. Your motion to accept these?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Very good. All right, bill warrants. Jackie, they're in front of you.
Okay, I move warrant W17-13, $270,296.71. I think that's it, right?
That's it.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Second?
Second, yeah.
A second? I'm sorry, I'm just writing and, do I have a second?
We have a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 That's why we're here, Charlie. don't
That's a
worry.
good thing there's somebody keeping an eye on me. All right, now we're moving into approval of minutes. August 11th, joint meeting with the PPP Board. September 20th, 2016, September 13th, 2016, approval of executive session minutes.
Can we pass on these? I'd like one more week.
There's a second to pass
I didn't,
over?
did you read them? I didn't read them yet. I just got them this afternoon, I'm sorry.
No problem.
Do I hear a second to pass over the minutes?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, so moved. All right, calendar of events. Next Board of Selectmen's meeting is tomorrow with the Board of Health, and it's mostly focusing on the transfer station. October 4th, regular meeting. October 18th is our special town meeting. We're now moving to go into executive session. We're going into executive session under Chapter 38, Section 21, Number 3, Number 1. I need a roll call vote.
Martin, aye.
Labrie, aye.
Konecki, aye.
Sure, aye.
We are now in executive session.